We've all heard the phrase shift left to bring security checks as early into the development process as possible. But what's the right way to do this? What tools are available? Let's see how we can support our developers and ensure our code and our apps are secure. Today we're joined by Angela. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
So let's start with this to kind of level set. What is shift left?
Shift left is a really abstract term, and I like to think about it as the software development lifecycle, which we usually think about in a circle, right? So we're constantly coming up with new ideas. We're thinking about how we're going to implement them. We implement them, and then our users use them, and then we improve upon it, etc. But if we take one of those cycles and kind of flatten it out to a linear timeline, we're able to see there is a left when we move things earlier in the software development lifecycle. In the context of testing, we have shifted left over the decades. In the security field, it's really similar. We want to prevent security vulnerabilities almost as early as we can and find ways to remediate them very early in the life cycle.
So basically taking all of those potential like security vulnerabilities and alerts and trying to really get that as close to the developer, or if not have the developer be responsible for some aspect of that.
Yeah, that's right.
So what challenges do developers face or do teams face when we're talking about shift left?
I think two challenges that I personally face are, one, I'm not a security expert, and I don't think that's controversial to say. I work on a generalized team, and we build a security tool. So I work tangential to security, and I've taken some security courses in university, things like that. But we have security researchers, security engineers who focus on this within the company and outside the company. It's really great to have the confidence that somebody has vetted these tools and found all the possible problems with it, and given us a little pop-up to say when I may have introduced a vulnerability. There is some kind of built-in tension between those of us who are building features and our primary priority is getting features delivered versus those of us who are security engineers and want to keep the company and our code secure. As somebody who codes our tools, when I get a little pop-up from the tool that I'm building, I heave a little sigh. I feel like maybe I don't want to do this now, but I should. And that's something that I think every developer creating a feature will experience. I think to kind of address this challenge in shifting left, we want to make sure that we're actually finding the correct place in the developer's workflow to kind of empower them and also inspire them to actually do something about the vulnerability.
I'm hearing a lot of challenges, so I'm kind of wondering, is it almost like shift left has maybe kind of failed here? Hello? Oh, wow, it's Dan Shanahan. Let me put you on speaker.
Here's my thoughts on this. I think that shift left hasn't necessarily failed as much as we've begun iterating on this process. There's absolutely, meaningful benefit in getting security findings in front of developers as early as possible. But I think that we need to really work more on, as an industry, the experience, the user experience around that. I think that we need to make sure that we're giving the right information in the right context to developers. I think it's also really crucially important that we make sure that we get out of the way when it comes to presenting alerts to developers when they're not actually needed there.
What are some of the biggest challenges then that teams face when they go to shift left?
The kind of ever-changing threat landscape, a huge challenge, right? There's a lot of different threats that continue to pop up for security teams, whether it's, unique and novel approaches toward exploiting applications, whether it's new technology that introduce new and changing patterns to the way that we build software. Those are all things that are really difficult for security teams to be able to adapt to, respond to, and to be able to fix. But I think one of the core things that a lot of security teams face is really resource constraints. It's being able to have the people, the support of the business, the funding that's required to be able to build those really high quality security testing platforms that new and modern organizations need.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So Christopher, I think in summary, there's a few things that we need to be thinking about as an industry when it comes to the idea of shift left. Number one, we need to make sure that we're really keeping in mind the developer experience. Developer experience is critical to being able to enable folks to be able to solve these problems. Number two, we need to make sure that our security teams have the right kind of resourcing, the right sort of funding that they need to be able to do their job as effectively as possible.
Thanks for sharing, Dan. So what tools are available to help developers write more secure code and be able to quickly resolve those types of vulnerabilities?
I work on building our code scanning product, which uses CodeQL, a semantic code analysis engine under the hood. And in code scanning, the primary way that I'm nudged and that our users are nudged is in the pull request experience. And so a pull request is when an engineer will put up a bunch of suggested changes to the code base and ask for review from their teammates and maybe now Copilot. And this is a place where we also can run a code scanning analysis in our GitHub Actions CI/CD workflow. So kind of simultaneously, this tool, first it'll pop up the security vulnerability, little comment saying, this might be a problem. This is where we see it.
Take a look at this.
Yeah. Like this is where it might have come in. This is where it might, be compromising your code base or your database or whatever. And here's a potential suggestion that you can accept or dismiss. A pull request is a really great time for me to be tapped on the shoulder. I'm already ready for my teammates to give me comments. I'm ready to edit based off of their comments. So if a tool tells me, make some changes, I'm happy to do that.
Now, you also mentioned suggested changes. Does AI come into play at all here?
Absolutely. So I actually work on our engine that underlies that change now, and we call it the Autofix engine. And so what we do is we talk to a large language model, give it the same information we would give a user. So where the security vulnerability might happen, a description of it, and the large language model will take that and the code that underlies it and come up with a code suggestion.
Kind of gets you away from that blank page problem where I don't even know where to get started. If I can see something, even if it might not be exactly what I'm looking for, a lot of times it's easier for me to edit than it is for me to create.
That's right. And in the best case, we can just click a button and commit the fix suggestion.
Now that will commit to the pull request, right? It's not going to go straight into my code base from there.
Yeah, that's right. It'll commit into the pull request and then probably request review again from my teammates. So everyone will be able to see that I've accepted this suggestion and then make a judgment call based off of that.
Right. Now, the pull request, of course, is for new code, new suggestions. But what about existing vulnerabilities that maybe we haven't used a security tool in the past, or maybe there's a new vulnerability that's been detected? How do we deal with those?
Yeah, so that's actually a very common case, right? We have a lot of repositories where the user hasn't enabled any security tooling in the past. Or maybe they have, but they decided, I'll get to it later. We'll just call it tech debt and we'll come back to it.
Yeah, and later never comes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we can run code scanning analyses on the repository in general, not just on new changes. And we usually run on the default branch of the repository, which is kind of the canonical source of truth of this code, usually. That's running in production. And this can pop up all the alerts related to the entire code base. And that can range in the hundreds and the thousands. And so for an individual developer, or even for a team, that can be really daunting. So we have a product called Security Campaigns that allows an administrator or a security organizer to kind of group those alerts into classes. They can group them based off of severity, off of type of problem, and assign them to developers. And on the developer side, I feel a lot more confident when someone gives me 10 similar problems versus 10 very different problems.
Right.
I feel, okay, I can do this. I'll fix one. The other ones will be similar, and we can burn them down that way.
Can AI help me with that as well?
Yeah. The fix suggestion engine also works for campaigns. So we will pop up the fix suggestion that the LLM has suggested, and then it'll be really trivial for the developer to click, 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 and the campaign will auto-resolve.
And what other vulnerabilities besides the code that I write might a developer bump into, and how can we help support those types of vulnerabilities as well?
Oh gosh, there's so many classes of vulnerabilities, but I think one of the most important ones is secrets. With something like a secret or a password, as soon as it's on the internet, it's leaked. And we want to fix that kind of before we get to that point. So secret scanning is a product we have that has something called push protection. And so a push is when we take those changes from our computer and push them up to github.com or however else you're doing version control and collaboration. And so the protection will actually scan it prior to the push and prevent it from ever going in. And so in this case, you can see we've actually shifted even further left, or this way. We can see we've shifted even further left in the workflow.
What do you think your biggest takeaway is from your experience on the team and using all of these tools?
as a person who builds features for security, I've seen that it's really important to take the opposing perspectives, right, of feature delivery versus security. I mentioned there being a little bit of inherent tension earlier on, and there doesn't need to be tension between people, right, or between organizations. It's really just in the work that we're doing and what we prioritize. And so I think it is really important to find the right place and the right tool in different places in the developer workflow. These are tools that both the developers and the security folks trust and love using and give them a natural place to communicate and to trust each other. We're really just trying to build that culture so that everyone involved is happy to work on it and is fixing the right security vulnerabilities.
Perfect. Thank you so very much for joining us today, Angela, and sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me.
What really stuck out to me about this conversation is the importance of delivering the right information about potential vulnerabilities at the right time. That when it comes to secrets, we want to make sure that doesn't wind up in our code base at all, so having that push protection. And when it comes to code vulnerabilities, meeting the developer at the pull request with potential fixes as well is the exact right moment. To learn more about shifting left, code scanning, and secret scanning, check out the link, and thanks for joining as we went beyond the commit.